Okay, here we go. So I want to also share this. So if you guys want to scan this and just have it in one of your browsers, if you have questions today, if we don't have time to get to them, or if, when we get to the Q&A, we can try to answer them as we go. But just kind of keep that as an open browser. While you're doing that, so I am Deborah Chandler. I'm the one she referred to as Deb all of the time. I am the College and Career Resource Counselor at La Cueva High School. This is my 15th year. I work closely with Ruben and NMEAF to bring trainings and to help students and figure out problems and solutions. But somebody's like, wait, you do what? And I said, well, FAFSA is my happy place. It's really weird. But financial aid, paying for college, all of that has just been a passion of mine. So I will spend hours after work doing things, developing programs for you guys to help spread the word. This room is a testament to our efforts. Like she said, we met 14 years ago and there were 13 of us in the room. So the fact that we have all of you, how many of you, is this your first year? Yes, yes, okay. How many of you have been doing this for more than 5 years? Okay, keep them up. 10 years. Okay, 15 years. 20. Yes, we got three or four that were 20. Thank you. So you definitely see changes as we've come through this. Last year was hard. Can we all agree to that?
Yes.
And I think when she's like, oh, it launched, when we didn't cheer obsessively, it's because we're a little apprehensive. We have a little PTSD from last year. I'm like, okay, it's open. Let's see what we can do. But I did do one yesterday, and it worked perfectly. So there's hope. So what we're going to do, I'm going to now go through our FAFSA training. So I'm going to go through line by line, kind of give you some insight into those things, and just go. But basically our intention is to support educators as they familiarize themselves with financial aid in the application process. Everybody here draws from their experiences in supporting students and their family, and then we acknowledge that each student has their own unique lived experience. It's amazing how I'll get somebody in my office after this many years and I'm like, I've never experienced this before, let's figure it out. So that's kind of our goal today. We're going to go through line by line, we'll talk about some resources and next steps, and then might have time for a few questions. There will be a break in between my session or in the middle of my session, and Ruben will probably be like, stop talking, it's time for a break, so I'll try to finish my thought. So the FAFSA prototype that she mentioned, this is my best friend. So if I have a student that says, do I have to include this on my FAFSA, or what does this, or whatever, I'll just go into the prototype. You can log in, create, you pick a profile, so there's different profiles of whether it's a dependent student, an independent student, all of those. So you can pick a profile, it will log you in, and you can go through and put all kinds of fake information, but you can see how the application works. So if you've never done that before, that's a good place to start, just so you can see what's going on. I also did talk to Ruben, all of the slides, so Maisha's slides, mine, the rest for today, he's going to put on the NMEAF website, so you don't have to kind of take pictures of every slide. We'll post those, and then I'll have him send out the link once it's posted. So there are some limitations with the prototype. One thing that it does, the search features aren't fully functional on there. Like when you're in the actual application, there's a question mark next to each thing. That's not available in the prototype. So that was a little frustrating, but you can at least see the questions. If you're looking for your high school name or a college name, in Albuquerque, the only school name is Desert Ridge Middle School. I'm not sure why they picked that one. It's our middle school that goes into La Cueva, but it has nothing to do with us. So you just pick one, it's random. And the colleges, they're not in our state, even though you pick New Mexico, but just know those are limitations. Tooltips, other help, they might not be there. Chrome is the preferred browser for the prototype, and then using the back button sometimes can lose your answers. This is just the prototype. The real application has everything, has all of the the help things, all of the questions, all of the schools, everything. They just launched this so that we would have like a preview of it. So it doesn't have all of the features. So we know this. It's going to be a clone of last year. She talked about the Who's My Parent tool. That parent wizard is built into the FAFSA. So if you have somebody asking you before, who do I have a contributor, go to the studentaid.gov site and do the Who's My Parent wizard. But if they're in the application, it will walk them through it as well. So over 15 million applications were submitted last year. We were down about 2% from the year before. High school seniors were still down 8.8%. They have fixed some known issues. There is a new document that just came out that was super helpful that I'll have him link as well. And you could read through it and say, if this is happening, what do I do? And it gives you tips on it. So they just launched that this week as well. Processing time for submitted FAFSA or corrections, they're saying 7 to 10 days. I'm a little apprehensive about that as well. But I don't know. I'm just, again, when it took 3 months last year, I'm not believing 7 to 10, but maybe. Has anybody ever had a student with a last name Null? Me neither, but I guess that was an issue. So they will be able to submit their FAFSA starting soon. I guess that was an issue. And then we know that FAFSA completions are an indicator of their likelihood of going to college. So there's just some data on that as well. So the first step is that FSA ID. So that's not a FAFSA ID, it's your Federal Student Aid ID, and every user has to have one. It's a username and password, and the students and the contributors. So we use the term contributor. So contributor, for my new people, typically the parent. So if I'm the student, and I'm a dependent student, then I need to have one of my parents contribute their tax information, their information to my FAFSA. If my parent is married and files jointly, still just one person needs to. If my parent is married but they filed separately, then we're going to have 2 contributors to it. So I've got the student and the 2 contributors. So when we use the term contributor, it's whose information needs to be supplied on that FAFSA to be able to submit. Each user needs to go onto the FSA ID website and set up a username and password, typically 1 to 3 days before they want to fill out the form, because it has to be matched by the Social Security Administration before they can use it. Once they get in there, if it's been matched, it brings that tax information in. It's beautiful, it works perfectly, but we need to make sure that it matches. She did say for our students, for our contributors that don't have a Social Security number, that they can use theirs immediately. They do not have to wait for the matching if they're having to go through that attestation process. So have them create, that's something you can do as a big effort at your school. Go ahead and have them create their FSA ID, and then a week later, if you can have a FAFSA night to help them finish it. So again, the student needs one and at least one parent, even if the parents are not U.S. citizens. They'll need to create an FSA ID in order to complete the student's application. There are some exceptions to needing a parent, and we'll talk about that in a second when we go through the application. If parents have filled out the FAFSA for an older sibling, that username and password is theirs. It belongs to them. They don't have to create a new one. So it's basically like their identity for federal student aid. So if I've got 10 kids, I do not, then I can use that same username and password for all of them. Sometimes it feels like 10 though, right? So again, they just go in, they click get started. They need to make sure that their Social Security number, date of birth, and the name matches what's on their Social Security card. We've got a lot of parents or students that have hyphenated last names. I had one that a few years ago, they're like, no, this is right, this is right, this is right. I said, can you bring in your social security card? Well, their social security card had their name switched in the hyphen, so it has to match exactly. There was another one that it actually didn't have a hyphen in it, it was just separate, but she had always hyphenated her name, so you need to make sure it matches. The date of birth, all of that, everything needs to match. For contributors who are non-U.S. citizens, they will select that they're not a citizen, and then it will give them the information on how to set it up, but it's all in the same form. I have not seen the online attestation form yet, so I can't speak to what she talked about. I'm hopeful that it is better than last year. So username 6 to 30 characters long. As we get more people into the system, some of them might have already been used, so they have to get creative with it, but it'll tell them right away if it's been used or not. Email addresses, they have to have their own. So if you've got a family email address and you need to have the student and the parent on it, they're going to have separate email addresses. Please tell students not to use their school accounts, because what happens when you use your school account? After they graduate, it's gone, right? So do not use their school account, because that's how they're going to recover their account and all of that. So use a personal one, help them set up a Gmail if they need to, that type of thing. So make sure that they do that. Password 8 to 30 characters. It cannot include their name or their birth date. So keep that in mind as well. Make sure, Make sure users write down and save their information. We only use this once a year, and I'm the worst because I can't remember mine every year, so I'm like on my 10th version of my password that I never use anywhere. So make sure that they write it down or save it somewhere that they're going to remember. Some of them will take a picture of it because that's just their process of writing things down. Not sure how secure it is. Mailing address, phone number. The phone number, we want to use that for account recovery, so they can text them the codes, those type of things. And we'll talk about verifying those in a second. So creating, let's see, so they're also going to need 4 challenge questions. There are some times that students are trying to set up things for their parents and they make up their own challenge questions, and the parents are like, I don't know whose mother's middle name that is. We're not supposed to set up accounts for each other. We should have that user set up that account for this very reason. I know sometimes that happens, so just be aware that they're answering the question as that person. So get the right mother on there. It happens. It happens. So on here, it'll just have them confirm everything, and then they're going to verify their contact methods. This is very important. So they're going to click verify on their cell phone and verify on their email, and then they're going to get the code. Cell phone takes seconds. It's amazing how fast that is. So they can do that. The email, you have to sit there and have small talk for a little while and like wait for the email to come in. How's your day? How's the weather? Because you don't want to navigate away from this page, because then you got to start all over again. So just have your patience, right, and wait for the email. But once you do that, you can use your phone number or your email to log in to the system. So your username, phone number, or email can be used in that username spot, but it's also going to do that 2-step verification every time they log in. And so keep this in mind, the text is the fastest. If you've got students at school and they can't have their phone on them, in the past I write, bring phone, so that we can do this. So then it just confirms everything. Oh, so sorry. These are some screens. So ideally the system will bring up an identity verification page with questions from TransUnion. So this is for parents that don't have a social. Students that don't have a social are not eligible, right? But if the student is a U.S. citizen and the parent is not, we still have to create a username and password for them. So ideally it's going to bring up questions like the TransUnion questions, like which address have you lived at? Which bank do you bank at? That type of thing. Ideally, that would happen. I only had it happen once. How many of you actually got the TransUnion questions to show up last year? not many. Okay, it didn't work. So then that's where we go to the attestation. Be careful with this if it does show up. Do not have them guess. It creates problems later on, so if they don't get it right. So the identity verification process, if it doesn't bring up TransUnion, they'll receive a notice that they can finish setting it up on the next page. It will ask, so if it sends them an email, these are the documents that they'll need. Step one, they can take a picture of the three things: driver's license, city identification card or state, or foreign passport. If they do not have that, then they have to have two. So it's either municipal identification card and utility bill, community ID card and utility bill, or consular identification card and utility bill. They will then follow the steps in the Verify Your Identity email and attach those documents. The thing with this is I had parents that would just reply to that email with the documentation, and that doesn't work. They have to send it to the email that's listed in the email. Start a new email, attach the documentation. But like she said, it's now online, so I'm not sure what that's going to look like. So we'll test that out soon, hopefully. So you should get an email, or it's successfully done. You should get an email within 1 to 3 days saying that it was verified. I had so many people last year not actually get that email that it was verified, but during beta testing, they were. So I'm hopeful that that's fixed as well. So if they aren't getting it, I always show them how to go in and look it up under their account settings. So they can go to their studentaid.gov account, click on, log in, and then click on account settings, and they can see if it's been matched or not. If it isn't matched, they can call the Social Security Administration. I usually take my students or parents in and I say, okay, let's look at it. And then they're like, oh, my name was spelled wrong. I forgot the N. Or my birth date was wrong. And so we fix it, and then it starts that process again. But if everything looks right, then they need to call Social Security Administration to see what's going on, to see if they can fix it on that end, or call federal student aid. So last year, parents and students were not getting an email. We talked about that. This is what it looks like if it is matched under the Social Security Administration verification or not matched. So if you're trying to log in and it's not pulling taxes, go to into their FSA ID and see if they can figure out if it's just matched or not matched. If they forgot their username, they can try to retrieve it, again, by text, email, or challenge questions. Does anybody know what the problem, well, it's on the screen. Anyway, the problem with the challenge questions is it locks you out for 30 minutes. That's a lot of small talk, not gonna do it. Go back to class, we'll see you in a couple days. So text again is the best, but email is there as well. And this is why it's important to have those verified. Okay, so that is your username and password. Everybody needs one. So now we're going to do the line-by-line FAFSA application. So this screen looks different now. I didn't get a new screen, but it says it's now open. And they can click on the 2526 FAFSA form. Remember, if they are looking for a different, like, let's say they're going to start in the summer. The summer is actually part of this school year, so then they need to do the 24-25 application. But if they're starting in the fall, then we do the 25-26 application, okay? And you can do that down at the bottom if they need that. So, landing page. When we come in, we're going to identify who we are. We're going to start this application as a student, but the parent can also start the application on their own as well and put the student information in and invite them. But we're going to go through the demo as the student this time. So they go in, they log in, and then it brings them to, there's 4 videos. When I'm sitting with a student, I'm like, we're going to skip these because I'm going to be your video. But they're helpful videos. So the first one is understanding the FAFSA form. The second one is talking about who are the contributors. The third one, what to expect. And then the fourth one, what happens after. So then we get to start the form. So it will pre-populate their information from their FSA ID. So at the top, it's got their name, their birthday. We can't change any of that information within the FAFSA application, but they can go to account settings over here if they need to look at any of their email address or phone number. If that's wrong, they have to go back to their FSA ID to fix it. It does pre-populate the permanent mailing address, but they can change that within the application. If it's different, if they've moved, please remind them to go back into their FSA ID account and have that updated as well, but we can do that within the FAFSA application. The next one's asking about state of legal residence and the date they became a resident. This was the hardest question last year. Anybody agree? They're like, I don't know when I became a resident. I'm like, were you born here? Yes. It's your birthday. It was like the weirdest thing. So it used to be, have you lived here for 5 years? Can we request to go back to that? Because it's hard. So anyway, if they're born here, it's the date that they were born. And then my military families are like, well, it was 2000, but I don't know what month, and so they have to remember, did I move before school or during school or whatever. So anyway, I don't think it has to be that specific. Is that correct? Correct. My financial aid people are like, give it your best guess. Okay. Providing consent. So this is part of the new process. So when we decided contributors, when we changed it all last year, on the front end, every user has to provide consent to use their information on this student's FAFSA. So they can go through, they need to click approve. If they decline it, and the student goes through the application, it will ask them again, are you sure that you're declining for us to pull your information? Because if they decline it, they are not eligible for federal student aid. Whether the student declines it or the parents decline it, they're not eligible. So they have to provide approval to be able to pull this information. It's going to pull in those 23 taxes. So when we talk about what taxes we need, it's that term prior year. So if the student is attending college starting in 2025, it's going to be 2 years prior for the taxes. So we're using 2023 taxes. It's going to pull in that tax information and then pre-populate it. So we talked about this. So all students have to provide consent. If parents are married filing jointly, only one has to provide consent. If they're married and filing separately, all three. Even if the parent didn't provide taxes, even if they don't have a Social Security number, or even if they filed in a federal or foreign country, they all have to go in and provide consent. If any of the criteria applies, the student is an independent student, and there's some other criteria as well. So dependent means we need our parent information on here. Independent means we don't. So if they're older than 24, if they're married and have married or have children that they provide half the support for, if they're pursuing the master's or doctorate, if they've been in foster care at any time since turning 13, an emancipated minor, currently or was in legal guardianship, homeless or self-supporting, they're at risk of being homeless, or a veteran, or serving active duty in the armed forces. So all of those will kick it into independent status, and we'll look at that question in a minute. Other than that, they need parent information. So this was what she was showing you, and when you're on this screen, it says, please wait while we're verifying your information or while we're bringing it in. So it's kind of a little visual. So you need to stay on that screen until it says success or not success. But it was pretty fast when I was doing it during the beta testing, and then yesterday. It was just a couple seconds, but make sure you don't navigate away from that page. So now we're going to go into the student's questions. So it starts with personal circumstances, and so this is where they're going to say, I'm single, never married, married, remarried, all of that. So we're going to say that we were single. The next question asks what their college and career plans are. For our high school seniors, even if they have had dual credit and they've got enough to be considered a second-year student, they are always going to click first-year freshman, okay? They are coming into college after graduating high school as a first-year freshman. Now, yes, their credits will put them into a different category, but they're first-year freshmen. And then the next question is, does the student already have a bachelor's degree? For our high school seniors, that's all no. So these are the questions that we kind of went through earlier. If they click any of those, that it will click them into an independent status. But for instance, if a student comes in and I'm like, okay, who do you live with? And they say grandma. Do we put grandma, is grandma a contributor to the FAFSA? No. Okay, only parents. So if they live with grandma, I said, okay, tell me more about that. Does grandma have legal guardianship over you through the courts? Yes. Okay, then we're going to click I've been in legal guardianship. They will probably have to provide that information to the financial aid office, but they are an independent student. Grandma has no requirement to provide their education past 18. Legal guardianship goes until they're 18. If they say they, what's another one? If they say they live with aunt, or whatever, all of that, none of those are contributors. It is just the biological parents or step-parents, okay? Most of our students are going to go down and click none of these apply. And then it's going to ask about homelessness. This question is one that hopefully has come up before you're doing the FAFSA, but if you've got a student that is couch surfing, if they are not living at home, if they are, if they're living with aunt but it's not stable, those type of things, you need to really contact your McKinney-Vento, contact for your district or Title I, depending on what they're calling their office or what you know them as. They can qualify them and say, yeah, this student's not living at home, it's a very volatile situation, they qualify for my program. If they qualify, we click yes. It will ask if we can provide documentation from a resource or a person at the district, and if we say yes, they are an independent student. So sometimes this is like they've just been surviving and we don't hear anything, but our counselors might hear something. Please, 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 if you hear that, that's a red flag. And you say, okay, I need to do something with that. I need to contact somebody. We need to see if we can figure it out. Because if they're an independent student in high school, they're most likely not making enough, so they're going to be fully Pell eligible. That's $7,300 a year that is free money for them to go to school. So they go to UNM, they get the lottery opportunity scholarships, they get $7,000 to help pay for housing. It's a huge benefit. So those are those little red flags that keep your ears open for any students that are in that kind of situation that needs help. Or if the whole family is homeless or living not at home, not in a stable environment, or because it says at risk of being homeless also, get them connected with your McKinney-Vento office, okay? Then it's asked if there's any unusual circumstances that prevent them from contacting their parents. So one is left home due to an abusive or threatening environment, that they were abandoned or estranged from their parents, they have refugee or asylee status, are a victim of human trafficking, the parents are incarcerated, or the student's incarcerated, the parents are incarcerated, or otherwise unable to contact. So if they say yes here, they're going to have to work with the financial aid administrators to provide documentation to kind of prove that, because we don't want students to say yes just trying to get out of putting parent information in so they can get more aid. So there's a back-end process that needs to happen, and it probably needs to happen at every college they're applying to, if they're applying to multiple. But just have those conversations with your kids if they say that is. If any of those things puts them into that independent status, they're considered provisionally independent, so it's not an automatic determination, it's provisional, and then that's when the documentation comes in, and if they say, yes, it is true, all of those things are true, then it gets forced over to be a completely independent student. So the nice thing about it is both first-time renewal applicants who have an unusual circumstance, they're granted that provisional. But if they do determine that they have those independent or those unusual circumstances, it will apply from then on. So they don't have to keep doing that every single year. Once they determine that's true, it carries forward on the renewals as well. If they pursue an independent status and it's not considered to be that, they do have to go back into the FAFSA, correct that question, and provide parental information if they want to be considered for federal student aid. If the parents are, sorry, mine's not working right. If the parents are refusing to provide information and the college deems them not to be independent, they are only eligible for unsubsidized loans. Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. That is this question. Maisha showed it a second ago. So this one last year says, do you want to be considered for unsubsidized loans? And kids are like, yeah, I want a loan. So they click yes, and it wouldn't make them put parent information in, and then they were only eligible for unsubsidized loans. So not a hard question to answer, but it probably caused a lot of problems on the financial aid side. So this year they changed it. Are your students refusing to provide information on the FAFSA form? And she said it defaults to no. So that would mean that they are going to provide parent information. If the parents are refusing and they say yes, they are only eligible for unsubsidized loans. Those are the loans that the interest starts accruing right away, and then they pay back 6 months after they're done, and there's a limited amount in that. So we really want to try to convince parents that we do need their information. Some of them are very they don't want their students to know about it, they don't want to have anybody else see it, but we just have to tell them it's really important to your student to have this in there. The one part, nobody can see the financial information. There's a couple questions at the end, but if the parent fills it out on their own, the student doesn't see what was put in there. So that's kind of a new distinction on that. This is the parent wizard, like she mentioned. So it says, are the parents married to each other? If they say no, do the parents live together? If that's yes, then we have to provide both parents information, even if they're not married. Most likely, if that's happening, they've filed taxes separately, and we need to have all three be contributors, the students and both parents. If they say no, they don't live together, then it says, did one parent provide more financial support than the other over the last 12 months? If you say yes, then you provide information on that parent. If that parent is remarried, then it's the family income, okay? If they say no, they did not provide more support, then you have to pick. It's the question says, my financial aid people are going to close their ears. It says, who makes more money, I think is what it says. That doesn't sound right. Anyway. I'm like, are you sure somebody didn't provide a little bit more support than the other one? You know, we just have a conversation. Like, did one of them buy you your car? Did one of them, one of them have your insurance? Anyway, whatever it is, then that is who you provide. So let's say that my parents are not married, they don't live together, one does provide more support, like we said, providing that. If they don't, then I have to pick the one, and then if whoever that is, we do the family income on that one too. So parent and step-parent. Okay, so then we're going to invite the parents. This is very important because I will call students down and we'll start on the application, but most of the time we stop here unless we can get parents on the phone. Because you have to invite them. But what's the stopper here? Social Security number. They have to invite them with their correct birth date. I love sitting there and just watching them squirm when the parents are in the room, and I'm like, are they going to know their birthday or not? And sometimes it's when husbands are filling it out too. No offense, guys. And when they do it right, I'm like, I'm so proud of you for knowing that. the counselor coming out on me. So anyway, they have to have the exact spelling of the name. They have to have the correct birth date and the social security number. I always make sure that they click this little button where it'll say show so that we can read it back and make sure it's correct. And then email address. The one thing that's on here is the email address does not have to match the email that they use for their FSA ID. This is just going to send them the invite. When they click on the invite, they'll log in with their correct information. So if it came up and it said I needed 2 parent contributors, you'll get 2 screens. If it was just, I just live with my mom, she's not remarried, and I only need 1, you'll only see 1 column there. So you send the invite from that. Oops, talked about all this, sorry. Let's see. At this point, once the student invites the parents can then go on a different device, log in, and do the rest of the application as we're doing the students. So they don't have to wait for the student to be done with their part once they receive the invite. So inviting parents with no social security number, there's a box underneath the social security number that says my parent doesn't have that. Has some different wording to make sure, because last year what was happening is kids that didn't know their parent's social were saying my parent doesn't have a social, and it was creating a lot of issues. So they have to, if they're a U.S. citizen, we have to have that information. So when they check that, the address information shows up. The one thing that I saw in one of the help things is that if this address needs to match that documentation that they're going to use for the attestation. So if they're using their driver's license, the address on the driver's license needs to be put in here. If they're using their utility bill, whatever that address is needs to be put in here. If it has a road, like, Willow Springs Road, and road is spelled out on their ID, you need to spell it out. If it's RD, then put that in there, okay? So this was something I didn't know about until just like this week when I was reading that help document. So that is one of the little tips and tricks. Make sure that this address matches what ID they're going to use to verify their identity. Yes.
On that real quick too,
Yes.
just no spaces at the end of the address, because a space is a value. You can have spaces in between,
Yes.
but a space at the end will cause an issue.
Okay.
Just make sure there's no spaces at the end of it.
So what he said is if the address, like sometimes we have the pre-fill thing where we're like, yeah, use that address. Make sure there's no space entered at the end of the address, because he's saying that's considered a character and it will kick it out. The little things we know, right? Okay, so once you invite them, it says that we've sent the invitation. And then now we're going to go fill out the rest of the students' information. So we're going to start with demographics. This is just used for research purposes. The parents do not see this information on when they're logged into their side, so students can answer freely. Then it'll ask your race and ethnicity. They can prefer not to answer if they don't want to. This was also hard. What descent are you? They're like, I don't know. Like, okay. So they're not required questions either. So if the student prefers not to answer, they can do that. And then it'll kind of drill down. It kind of gets annoying. I usually just give them a little bit of information and move on. So. The next one is citizenship status. Most of our students are going to do U.S. citizen or national, but there are eligible non-citizens that can apply, and this is kind of who is one of those eligible non-citizens. So like refugees, asylum granted, Cuban Haitian entrant, conditional entrant, parolee. Number 3 was a T immigration status for victims of human trafficking, or if the parent holds a T1. All of these are very unique. I did have one last year that fit into this category, so we worked through that. And then I always contact my financial aid people and say, am I doing this right? Can you see on the back end if it came through? What documentation do you need? So don't hesitate to reach out to these guys. There's going to be a panel at the end of today, and we can make sure that you have their contact information, but they want to help on the front end so it goes smoothly in the back end. Okay, I have 5 minutes. Permanent residents that have a green card, yes, are eligible.
Yeah, but they're under the eligible non-citizen.
Yes, eligible non-citizen.
It doesn't say
Right. Yes, okay, yes, sorry. Those are kind of unique beyond that. Yes, thank you. Okay, so student demographics, this is a good question. I always make sure that I stop if a student says that neither parent attended college. I make sure that I have that conversation about support resources at the university. So there's going to be a TRIO program or an educational opportunity program that can help them navigate college because they haven't had those resources in the past. So if a student says that, I'm going to be like, this is going to help you get in contact with other people, but please know about these programs. Because again, acronyms, we hear TRIO, and they're like, I don't know what that is, I don't think I need it, so I'm going to say no. But we know it's hugely helpful, so whatever we can do to kind of let them know to try that. And then, was a parent killed in the line of duty, either serving active duty on or after 9/11 or performing other duties as a public safety officer. So that was added last year. So yes or no, because there's additional funding that can happen there. And then, do they have a high school diploma, a GED, homeschooled, or none of the above? Another hard question for high school seniors, they're like, none of the above, I'm still a senior. And I'm like, okay, by the time you start college, what are you going to have? And I'm like, and you are going to get your high school diploma, aren't you? You're going to finish strong, you're going to get rid of senioritis. So, high school diploma is their answer. Then it asks what high school that they came from. So type in New Mexico, in the school name you can just type in La Cueva and search, and then you have to actually physically click on it at the bottom. This is what's used when Ruben is looking at numbers, when we're competing with each other to see who can get the most FAFSAs done. It's all based on this question, so make sure they're picking the right high school. With that, one other thing, so you confirm that high school, it just makes you look at it one more time. That feels better. So when we're talking about who's the parent for divorced parents, we always get the, well, he claims them on the taxes. That wasn't part of any of the questions, was it? It was who do they live with, or who provides more support. So it has nothing to do whether they claim them on the taxes or not. We will pull in the tax information for the parent that provides more financial support. So it doesn't matter who claimed them. Somebody else asked if it's a step parent, do they have to have adopted them? No. So it is, if they're providing information on mom's remarried, it's that family income. Somebody asked about if they are not a U.S. citizen, what do we do to try to help them get money to pay for college? And that is going to be individual based on the college that they're looking at. So UNN has a state aid application that they fill out. Other colleges might say, hey, do the paper FAFSA, but hand it to us and we'll see what we can get for you. Every college is just a little different in what they're going to require for aid for our non-U.S. citizen students. And then there were a couple, sorry, I have them on my phone. Will there be a recording of this event? We are recording. I was only going to record a few sessions, but I'll have Victoria just record everything today, and then we'll have it available. We have a YouTube channel, I think, through NEAF that we can upload them to as well. Let's see. For students that are living with individuals other than their parents, such as grandparents, or living alone, who would they put on their FAFSA? They would not put anybody. If they qualify as an independent student, it will bypass all of those questions. So it'll just go and ask financial information for that student only. If the student is a non-U.S. citizen, If a student is a non-U.S. citizen but has a social, so they have to be a U.S. citizen and have that social. The social that is used for work purposes only is not an eligible number. It will not work for federal student aid. So yes, they might have a social for work purposes only, but that is not the number that they put into the system. They would have to file just through the college as a non-U.S. citizen. If a family is living in a hotel with another family or shelter due to the loss of the home from wildfire or flooding, and depending on FEMA status and unsure how long they will be there. So I asked Victoria this question, and she said that they would put that they are homeless or at risk of being homeless, they would have an interview with the financial aid director and tell them exactly why and what's going on. And then for that year, they would be considered independent. They might have to reevaluate that the following year, but that's something that they can definitely put there. Can students with an ITIN number apply for federal student aid, or I'm sorry, FSA ID? No, they cannot. That again is not a U.S. citizen, so they would not be eligible. Let's see. Can I verify information for contributor? The forms only say parents whether the student doesn't have a parent. Again, that is going to, when they choose something that throws them into independent, then they will not see the parent questions at all. Okay. If students did use their school account to create their FSA ID, can they change that? Yes, they go back into their FSA ID, log in, and they can change their email at any time and then go through the verification process of that. And then in general, undocumented students cannot apply. They cannot apply for federal student aid, but we are going to have a session later today on how to provide aid or give information to our undocumented students. And then that is where the college might have a separate application process for those students, so they can see if there's other institutional aid that they can offer them. The good news, and you'll hear about it later, is our state, if they're staying in state, lottery and opportunity are regardless of immigration status. So all students that are residents, graduate from Mexico, all of that are eligible for lottery and opportunity. So tuition and fees are paid for regardless of immigration status. Okay, so that was a lot, but we'll keep working on it. So the next part in the application is the student financials. So if the student did not provide consent earlier to pull in their taxes, it's going to give them the option to do so here. Again, if they do not give consent, they are not eligible for any aid. So that is important to note. Okay. So it's going to ask a few questions. So IRA rollover into another IRA or qualified plan, pension rollover, and then amount of college grants and scholarships. For my seniors, I always take a moment to talk about this because it's of course going to be zero for this year because they haven't gotten any scholarships. But even next year and the year after, most scholarships are not reported to the IRS, so those are going to be zero. They will know if that's the case, and then they'll put that in there. And then if they earned any foreign income. If it's nothing, they just put zeros in all of them. Student assets, so the current total of cash, savings, and checking, and this goes for parents and students. All of these questions will be on the parent side as well. The cash, savings, and checking, and I say, okay, at the end of the month, like if today's payday, not going to put that in there. What is left over at the end of the month after your bills are paid? If a student gives you a squeamish look, I'm like, is it negative? Because that's another conversation we need to have if your bank account's negative. They're like, no, I have like $5. I'm like, okay, we'll put $5 in there. So cash, savings, and checking, do that. The net worth of investments is going to be, like, I always click the question mark next to it if I have a parent asking me about the net worth of investments. If they have a 529 plan, I think I'm jumping ahead a little bit, they do put that on the parents. So the 529 plan, even though it's for the benefit of that student, it is a parent investment. So investments, click on it and look, and then net worth of business or investment farms. So the important thing about this too is families that meet all three of these criteria will not have to enter assets. So if they have a total adjusted gross income of less than $60,000, if they did not file any of those schedules on their federal tax return, and either do not file a Schedule C or file that form with net business gain or loss. So if they meet those criteria, they will not see the assets page, okay? Students will, accept this. Students will always have to enter this because we won't have the parent income if they started the form. So if we have the parents start the form, or if the parents do it, then these might not show up for the student, but they won't show up for the parent if it has those. Then we select our colleges and universities. So this is where they can list up to 20 schools, which was wonderful. We always had to play the game of we'll list 10 and then we'll wait for it to process, then we'll delete some out, put some more on. So they can list up to 20. I had a kid yesterday, had 19. I'm like, we might need to have a conversation about what's a good fit for you, but okay, let's try. And then he actually admitted, he's like, he got to 15, he's like, I can't remember the rest. Maybe I'm not really interested in them. And I'm like, okay. So if a kid has more than 20, what you can do is submit 20, get the application processed. Once it's been processed, you can go in and delete one and add another one. It will not take that information away from that one that you already sent it to. So that's how they can get more than 20. The student can view, it'll give them a list of the colleges they chose to make sure that those are the correct ones. And then the review page. So really, like, we didn't have to do a lot. It brought the taxes in, we invited the parents, we put in our cash savings and checking, we put in our colleges and our high schools and our demographic information, and we're done. So when the application works, it's really fast. It's nice. So that's the end of their application. It will show them at the bottom, has your parent filled it out? So it might say completed, their status is on the right-hand side here. If it hasn't been done, but parents said that it was done, then they can do that. That's typically the other way around, right? You're helping a parent and it says the student hasn't done their part. So the parents can kind of track whether it's been done on both sides as well. So after agreeing and signing, then it will come up with a sign button. If both parties have done their part, whoever's finishing it, it'll say sign and submit. Okay, so the sign button's here because we have only done the student section so far and the parents have not done that yet. And then the completed section, it kind of gives them a status, but they can track and manage that on that page as well. They can manually enter their parent information on the bottom of that page, but again, it will process as a rejected transaction unless that consent is provided by the parents logging in. So not really a useful portion, but it can be done if there's a weird situation. This is really interesting. If you do not log in, let's say you start your FAFSA and you save it and you don't log in and start working on it in 45 days, they're going to delete everything out of there. So students would come to me, they're like, I did my FAFSA, but it's not there. I'm like, well, when did you do it? Did you actually click submit? If they've submitted their part, it saves that. But if they're working on it, they save it and exit it and don't go back within 45 days, they do delete the information. So now on to parents. This is what the email will look like. So we invited them as the contributor. They get an email saying they have requested that you help them complete the FAFSA, and you click log in. Once they log in, they'll use their username and password that they set up, their FSA ID. And then they click accept invitation. If they didn't get an email, they can log into their federal student aid account with their FSA ID, so studentaid.gov, log in, and right at the top, it says accept invitation. The interesting thing about that page is we can see how much they owe in student loans. I think that should be hidden from students when they're in the same room. Anyway, so it'll say how much aid or whatever, but right at the top it says accept invitation if they did not get that. And then by accepting, they're agreeing to share their information. It gives them the same 4 cute little videos. It's the same screen where it tells your information and your address can be changed there. And then they click provide consent. It goes through the process where it brings in the taxes. I forgot to mention, if they didn't file taxes, it's still going to do this little thing where it goes out to look for them, and then it'll say success. But if there's no taxes to be filed, it doesn't bring anything in. But it just makes sure, and it confirms that in that page. Parent demographics, so single, unmarried, but they live together, married, remarried, separated, divorced, widowed. So those are all the different categories. And then so let's say Dylan Chandler, who's 15, not quite there yet. So Dylan Chandler's filling out his FAFSA, and he invites Deborah and my husband and Adam, or he just invites Deborah. If we get into this part and we don't have Adam's information in here, it will ask the parents to put Adam's information in there if he's needed as a contributor. So it does it in a couple different ways. So if they only invite one on the student one, and it turns out that we need both because maybe we're not married and but we're living together, then it'll give you the other parent the option to invite that third party. Ask the state of legal residence, again, the date of residency and the parent finances. This question will come up if they meet certain income thresholds, I think, or actually I think it comes up for everybody now. But this is just looking to see if they qualify for any of the federal or state assistance, Medicaid, free or reduced lunch. The one thing about this is a lot of our school lunches are free now, but I have to have qualified based on income. So everybody in APS gets free lunch, but that doesn't mean that I qualify for the free or reduced lunch program because I did not provide income to do that, okay? So if none of them apply, click none of them apply. And then it takes into, it'll ask you the family size. This is another question that really bugs me. Anybody else? Okay, because what it does is when it brings it up, it automatically clicks no. So is the parent's family size different from the number of individuals claimed on the taxes? And it automatically says no, and it doesn't show you the bottom part. So if you're like, no, the family size on my taxes is the family size on my, is correct, so I'm gonna say no and just keep going. I always click yes, and it always says the family size is 3. So I change it to be correct. There's 5 in my family, so then you add 2 to the bottom, and it changes that to 5. So I'm not sure what that's all about. I don't know whether you guys have had any, does it say everybody's 3 family sizes, or does it actually bring in what's correct?
It calculates based on it will calculate based on what is entered here.
Okay.
So it overrides this, otherwise it defaults what is on the
taxes.
Exactly.
Okay, so it defaults what's on the taxes, but if you want to just make sure you can do this. But let's say in that situation where the taxes don't include a kid because dad claims them, you can come in and add that. No, I support this kid, all of that. So you can make this be what it looks like. Okay. Number in college, how many people in the parent's family will be in college from 25, 26, but we do not include the parents on this one. Not sure why we're still asking this question because it does not have an impact on federal student aid. If you have triplets and you say 3 in college, the student aid index is the same for all of them. It does not split it. So not sure why. My financial aid people don't know why either. Okay, so parent taxes, same questions. The IRA rollover, pension rollover. Did they have earned income credit? Yes, no, I don't know. Try not to put I don't know. Try to get a copy of the taxes and say yes or no for that one. And then the grant scholarships and then the foreign income earned. So again, same questions. Then we go into child support received. So into the total amount for the calendar year. So January to December, how much did they get in child support? Put that in there. The parent assets, this is where if they have a 529 plan for the student, they will put that number in here. It used to be that they had to include the total value of all 529 plans. So if you have 3 kids, 3 529 plans, you used to have to put the total amount of that investment. You do not have to do that anymore. It is just for that one kid. How much do you have in the account for that one kid? Yes.
The college number in college is statutory.
Okay.
But it's not in the SAA calculation.
Okay. The number in college is statutory, but it's not in the SAI calculation. Okay. The net worth of businesses and farms and the net worth of investments, all of that is the same as what we went with students as well. Again, okay, sorry. This screen comes up in a lot of different ways, but not all of them. Okay, so let's say that student is doing their application. They determine that they need one parent because the parents are married and filing jointly. So they get the one thing, they put the one student in or parent in, and the parent comes in. We still have to have the other parent information in the application, but the other parent doesn't have to do anything. So you might see this screen and think, oh, I've got to invite the other parent, and they've got to log in and do something. No, they just need to make sure that their social name, birthday, all of that matches what's coming in on the taxes. So you'll see this section quite often, but this one that comes at the end of the parent application is not an invite, it's just for information purposes if it wasn't entered somewhere else already. And that's the end of this parent application. So again, super simple. We just did identifiers, we did their demographics, we entered, like 5 or 6 questions on their finances, and then we're done. So at the bottom, because I already did the student application and now I'm doing the parent, you see how the button changed to sign and submit. So once they do that, it is submitted for all of them. Okay. The congratulations page will show that the parent section is completed, and then it tells them what happens next. Typically processed, I don't know, what are we saying? Do we think it's 2-3 days? Okay. Really? Okay. Okay, 2 to 3 days, and then it should be off to the colleges that they, it should be off to the colleges so they can start processing.
There is an asterisk. It depends on when the college is loading the ISRS.
Okay, there's an asterisk. It depends on when the colleges do their part. But anyway, federal student aid, I guess they're saying 3 days. But they can kind of go in and see if it's processed. If they realize they made an error, they cannot change anything until it's processed. Once it's processed, you can go and do a correction and resubmit, and then it will go, it'll take another 3 days before it goes out to the colleges, but they can't do anything until it's processed by the federal student aid. The confirmation pages are going to look different. So if it is a parent that is submitting the FAFSA, they're just going to get the congratulations, your form is submitted. If the student submits, they're going to get a congratulations, and it's going to actually have the SAI on there. So they'll see the numbers and kind of see what they might be eligible for on their page, but the parents don't see that part. So other scenarios, independent students will only complete the student section and may need to invite their spouse if they are married. So those are for older students. Provisionally independent students will only complete the student section. Parents can start the form and invite the student to complete. This often works when the invitation to the parent contributor is not matching. So if you've got the situation where the student invited the parent, the name, the social, everything looks, the birthday looks right, and they're still not getting the invite, and when they log into their FSA ID account, there's no invite there, they can start it. So you can go into the student one, delete the student application, go into the parent, start the application, invite the student, and then the student should see the invite. So at any time before it's submitted, you can delete an application and then restart. When we were doing some of the Mega FAFSA events this summer, we had some really weird situations, and that actually fixed it for a couple of them, which is quite ridiculous, but we have to get them to match the contributors and the students to be able to finish it.